So 2 down, bases empty, 9th inning. There is Singleton out on deck to bat for Dower if Runege can keep it going.
For the second time in 5 years, the American League Championship Series opened in Baltimore, where the Orioles welcomed the Chicago White Sox.
Chicago won 99 this year, most in baseball. Baltimore was right behind with 98. Lamar Hoyt, 24-game winner for the Chi Sox. The left-hander Scott McGregor, who won 18, goes for Baltimore.
Both starters were sharp in Game 1, but Chicago's Cy Young Award winner was dominant.
Struck him out.
Lamar got us started, and he pitched just like he pitched all season long. This great command of an array of pitches, just pressure couldn't get to him.
He fans him on 3 pitches.
He was unhittable. He had an unbeaten streak at that point. And yes, I got a single in the last inning, I think, but it was a jam job flare base hit that fell in.
Despite allowing 1 run in the 9th, Hoyt tossed a 5-hit complete game, and Chicago took an early series lead on the road.
Lamar Hoyt goes the distance as Chicago claims Game 1 2-1.
As the series went on, I think one of the goals was to not face him again because he was that unbeatable.
In Game 2, Orioles rookie Mike Boddicker turned in an even more impressive performance.
Sets them down 1-2-3.
He mixes pitches well. He struck me out 4 times, so he was very impressive.
And the White Sox, they had great hitters, and they battled the heck out of me. It seemed like I was 2-2, 3-2 on a ton of guys, and I had good stuff that day, good location.
Boddicker fanned 14 in the O's 4-0 victory. No pitcher had ever thrown a shutout with more Ks in his postseason debut. And the series shifted to Chicago, knotted at a game apiece.
We were going home tied with the best 2 out of 3, so we thought we were in really great shape.
Instead, they were in for a rude awakening. Baltimore put 11 runs on the board in Game 3 and put the White Sox on the brink.
And the Orioles lead it 2-1.
It's a do-or-die situation. The Sox backs are against the wall.
Probably one of the great games of postseason history. Our young Britt Burns against Storm Davis.
Game 4 was another pitcher's duel, and neither team could break through.
Curveball got him swinging. Got him looking.
Britt was just cruising along, but we weren't able to get any run support.
The game was scoreless through 9, but in the 10th, the Birds' bats awakened.
This ball is gone. Home run, Tito Landrum.
Just in time to punch their ticket for Baltimore's 6th World Series appearance.
And the Baltimore Orioles are the American League champions of 1983.
As the Phillies and Dodgers squared off in the NLCS, the odds seemed to be stacked heavily in one direction.
The Dodgers have beaten the Phillies 11 out of 12 times this year.
They beat us 11 out of 12. It's about time for it to turn in our favor. We went in there, I think, with a lot of confidence.
I had actually told Dusty Baker that we were definitely going to beat them in the playoffs. Also, I claimed that I would win the MVP.
Armed with confidence, the experienced Phillies braced for a battle in Los Angeles. Where in his first at-bat, their slugging third baseman served notice that recent history was now irrelevant.
And he hits a high fly ball into deep center. And can't get it. Home run for Mike Schmidt.
1 run was all that Steve Carlton and the Phillies would need to claim the first game for Philadelphia.
And down he goes. Second strikeout for Steve Carlton.
Well, then there's a whole lot of zeros up there, and of course my one happened in the first inning, and without Steve Carlton and Al Holland, it wouldn't have been 1-0. They were great.
A ground ball to short. De Jesus has got it. Over to first. Phillies win.
And now we're 11-2 with them this year, so we still have a long way to go.
The Phillies' momentum stalled, however, as the Dodgers took Game 2.
The Dodgers are alive and even as they beat Philadelphia 4-1.
In Philadelphia for Game 3, a rookie right-hander enjoyed a dazzling postseason debut.
You go in with the rookie, I think there's maybe some hesitation, and Charles just stepped up and did what he did that year, pitched a great game.
That's 9 strikeouts for Charlie Hudson.
Gary Matthews led the offense with 3 hits and 4 RBIs and put the Dodgers on their heels, down 2 games to 1.
And he's 5 for 11 in the series.
In Game 4, Sarge remained in charge. As Matthews continued to make his case for MVP honors and bring misery to the Dodgers.
Seeing Tommy Lasorda actually really sweating for a change was really just a dream come true for me.
Boy, this crowd is really psyched now. They are 1 strike away from Baltimore. That's it. Swing and a miss, strike 3. And the Philadelphia Phillies are National League champions.
Something else too. Would you have him go wash his hands and then go to the rest? Get out of here! Get out of here! Get out of here!
Breaking ball? That's on the plate.
You're gonna throw your fastball and move him back off the plate. When you come in, I'll get you about 10 runs and we'll have a lot of fun. Right here, right here! Safe! All right! Help yourself, big guy. Huh now? Let's tour the bullpen right here. Let's tour the bullpen.
Played every inning of every game this year.
Swing the line, man!
Back here.
Larry Anderson. Okay. That's what I'm talking about. Nice thing, baby.
Major League Baseball presents the 80th edition of the Fall Classic, the 1983 World Series. Baltimore, Maryland is the site of Game 1, a matchup between the National League pennant-winning Philadelphia Phillies and the American League champion Baltimore Orioles. And as Baseball Commissioner Bowie Kuhn throws out the first ball, the annual drama is about to unfold. The World Series arena is familiar ground to both teams. In 1979, Baltimore lost a heartbreaker, and the Orioles remember it well. While in 1980, the Phillies were decisive champions. For each club, a return to baseball showcase has taken hard work and a burning desire to be at the very top. In 1983, Joe Altobelli took over as manager, and his Orioles won 98 games, soaring to a 7th division title in 15 seasons. Pitching has long been a strength for the Orioles, and so it was again in '83, as Altobelli put together a staff that overcame the kinds of hardships that might have damaged any team's pennant hopes. That strength was evident in the League Championship Series against Chicago, as the Orioles closed out a rough-and-tumble set with the White Sox, holding Chicago to 1 run in the last 30 innings, taking the series 3 games to 1 for their 6th pennant in 18 years. The Philadelphia Phillies' climb to the pinnacle was no less remarkable. In mid-July, Paul Owens left the front office to become manager and soon got his team back to playing its kind of hustling ball. Winning 21 of their last 25 games, the Phillies snared their division title for the 5th time in 8 years. The pennant came soon after as Philadelphia topped the Los Angeles Dodgers in the championship series. Now the Phillies would return to the World Series, a place where they found glory just 3 years before.
The 1983 World Series is brought to you by Chevrolet, official U.S. cars and trucks of the 14th Olympic Winter Games. Chevrolet and you taking charge. And by Gillette Afro Razor, the twin blade razor that pivots for a close, comfortable shave. And by Delta Airlines, 35,000 professionals serving more than 90 cities in the U.S. and abroad. Delta is ready when you are. And by Transamerica, for insurance, manufacturing, and transportation. The power of the pyramid is working for you.
On a cool and cloudy night in Baltimore, temperature near 60 degrees, dry conditions right now, and a not uncommon sight, the World Series back in Baltimore for the 6th time since 1966. Hello again, everyone. I'm Al Michaels. Welcome to game number 1. Howard and Reggie talked about the individuals during the pregame show, so some thoughts now on the teams collectively. Every team has its ups and its downs. Baltimore had some problems this year, mainly with pitching. Jim Palmer and Mike Flanagan spent a lot of time on the disabled list. Dennis Martinez had a dreadful year, but Joe Altobelli was able to persevere, and all things considered, they had relatively clear sailing to the championship. Not so for the Philadelphia Phillies. How about this for adversity? If somebody told you, and you were a Philly fan in spring training, Pete Rose would wind up hitting 245. Joe Morgan would hit 230. In September, you would be platooning the cleanup hitters, and those two guys would have been in San Diego at the beginning of the year. The team would wind up batting 249. Steve Carlton would have a losing record, and the manager would be fired in midseason. If you were a Philly fan, you would figure you'd be lucky to finish fourth. But here they are, having won their division by 6, red hot in September, beat the Dodgers in 4, ready for game 1. On opening night, everybody gets a prediction. A free pick? I think Philadelphia. Not scientific by any stretch of the imagination. I just think it's their year. I'll take Philadelphia in 6. Certainly, when you talk about Howard Cosell, you are talking about a dissenting view, I assume.
Absolutely. You know, on the first night of Monday Night Baseball, I said I thought the Birds of Baltimore were the best team in all of baseball, and I still believe that, and I think they're going to win this World Series. But I don't think it's going to be easy. And one of the reasons I don't think it will be easy has already been touched upon by Reggie Jackson. And that's the designated hitter rule and the apparent absence of Kenny Singleton from the day-in, day-out lineup of the Birds. And with me, the man who knows Baltimore's team as well as any man alive. But without prejudice, how will the absence of Singleton affect this team?
Howard, it definitely has to hurt. Kenny Singleton was a player who got on base 4 times out of every time he went to the plate this year. And during the 1979 World Series, when I managed the Orioles, we certainly missed the bat of Lee May. However, I think if Cal Ripken Jr. and Eddie Murray can continue so offensively like they did throughout the course of the season, he won't be missed quite as much.
All right. How about the designated hitter rule? Doesn't this very situation bespeak the fact that once and for all the two must get together and either keep it together or throw it out?
It definitely does, Howard. And I'll tell you something. I think that day is a lot closer than a lot of people think. However, Joe Altobelli has said he's going with 3 starters. That gives him Armvis and Chalmers as extra long relievers, along with Sammy Stewart and Dennis Martinez. With Kenny Singleton sitting on the bench and able to hit from either side of the plate, Joe, if he falls behind early in the game, can start pinch hitting early and make use of his bench, and we know that's going to help the Orioles.
Now, you've already met this great man. He is, of course, Earl Weaver, who'll be working with Al and me throughout this series, and as we've already established, one of the greatest managers of all time. We are apparently about to begin the introductions of the players, and that will be done for you by the man who pitched a no-hitter in 48 in the old Polo Grounds, Rex Barney.
It is time to meet participants in the 1983 World Series. First, the National League champion, the Phillies. Coaching staff. Johnson. The coaching Darren Johnson. Claude Osteen in the bullpen. Dave Bristol. Bobby Wine. Ryan, the trainer. Jeff Cooper, Gus Heffling. Now tonight's starters. Outfielder, Vaughn Hayes. Second baseman, Juan Samuel. Catcher, Ozzie Virgil. In the bullpen, infielder, Kiko Garcia. Pitcher, Al Holland. Outfielder, Greg Gross. Outfielder, Joe LaFay. Infielder, Tony Perez. Outfielder, Bob Dernier. Pitcher, Steve Carlton. Pitcher, Ron Reed. Pitcher, Kevin Gross. Pitcher, Larry Anderson. Pitcher, Willie Hernandez. Pitcher, Charles Hudson. Pitcher, Marty Bystrom. Here is the manager of the Phillies, Paul Owens. Now the starting lineup. Leading off, twice the National League's MVP, appearing in his 4th World Series, the second baseman, number 8, Joe Morgan. Batting second, a former World Series MVP who has more hits than anyone in National League history, the first baseman, number 14, Pete Rose. Hitting third, he led the majors in home runs with 40 and hit .467 in the League Championship Series. The third baseman, number 20, Mike Schmidt. Batting fourth, he hit .308. And the LCS with a home run in the clinching game, the right fielder, number 28, Sixto Lezcano. Hitting fifth, the MVP of this year's League Championship Series with records in home runs and RBIs, the left fielder, number 34, Gary Matthews. Batting sixth, an 8-time Gold Glove winner, the center fielder, number 31, Gary Maddox. Hitting seventh, an outstanding defensive catcher who had 20 multiple hit games this season, the catcher, number 6, Bo Diaz. Batting eighth, he led the Phillies in games played and has more than 1,000 major league hits. The shortstop, number 11, Ivan DeJesus. In ninth position, now in the bullpen, warming up, the National League leader in wins with 19, number 40, the starting pitcher, John Denny. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the American League champion, Baltimore Orioles. the coaching staff. Ray Miller in the bullpen. Jimmy Williams. Elrod Hendricks in the bullpen. Cal Ripken Sr. Ralph Rowe. The trainer, Ralph Salvon. Now tonight's non-starters. Infielder, Len Sakata. Outfielder, Dan Ford. Catcher, Joe Nolan. Pitcher, Jim Palmer. Pitcher, Tippy Martinez. Outfielder, Benny Ayala. Outfielder, Ken Singleton. Pitcher, Dennis Martinez. Pitcher, Storm Davis. Outfielder, Gary Renicky. Outfielder, John Shelby. Outfielder, Tito Landrum. Pitcher, Mike Flanagan. Pitcher, Tim Stoddard. Pitcher, Mike Boddicker. Pitcher, Sammy Stewart. Here is the manager of the Orioles, Joe Altobelli. Now the starting lineup. Leading off, the all-time Baltimore base-stealing champion, the center fielder, number 1, Al Bumbry. Batting second, he hit a career high of .304 in 1982. The right fielder, number 28, Jim Dwyer. Hitting third, the 1982 Rookie of the Year, who led the American League in runs, hits, doubles, and extra base hits this season, the shortstop, number 8, Cal Ripken. Batting fourth, he had more than 30 home runs and 100 RBIs for the third time in the last 4 seasons. The first baseman, number 33, Eddie Murray. Hitting fifth, he had 2 Grand Slam home runs in September. The left fielder, number 38, John Lowenstein. Batting sixth, one of the toughest players to strike out in the American League, and one of its finest fielding second basemen, number 25, Rich Dower. Batting seventh, he had 6 runs batted in the first game with the Orioles on July 1st. The third baseman, number 10, Todd Cruz. Batting eighth, he has caught more games than anyone in Orioles history. Number 24, Rick Dempsey. In the 9th position and in the bullpen warming up, the leading winner on the Orioles with an 18-7 record, the starting pitcher, number 16, Scott McGregor. Ladies and gentlemen, we direct your attention to center field, where a 30 by 40-foot flag is being unfurled. The flag is an exact replica of the Star-Spangled Banner, which flew over Fort McHenry and inspired Francis Scott Key to pen the words to our national anthem. Since 1974, the ballad, "Thank God I'm a Country Boy," has become a trademark of the Orioles' 7th inning stretch. Tonight, as we honor America, we match that familiar voice with the face. Here to sing our national anthem is Mr. John Denver.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave true through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
The pregame ceremonies have concluded at Memorial Stadium in Baltimore, Maryland, as we await the start of Game 1 of the 1983 World Series.
Bowie Kuhn. Side of the Baltimore dugout. At the invitation of the Orioles, the ceremonial first pitch for the first World Series game will be thrown by Commissioner Bowie Kuhn. Accompanying Mr. Kuhn is Orioles owner, Mr. Edward Bennett Williams. The first ball, please.
So the Commissioner, Bowie Kuhn, throwing out the first ball as we get set for Game 1. And here come the Orioles. Baltimore winning the East this season, won it by 6. And as you can see in that shot, it is raining. It had been drizzling earlier. They had the tarp at the ready at about 10 minutes of 8, and right now it's coming down, but not hard enough to stop the beginning of the game. Eddie Murray is the Gold Glove first baseman for Baltimore. And it's a good infield with Rich Dower, who doesn't hit a whole lot, but does the job at second defensively. The shortstop could very well be the MVP in the league this year, Cal Ripken Jr., only his second season, and the third baseman was the man who was acquired from Seattle in mid-year, Todd Cruz. No bat, good glove, very good arm. In the outfield, John Lowenstein platoons out there with Gary Renicky, so Lowenstein starts tonight. In center field, where they also platoon, it's Al Bumbry. We'll see John Shelby going against the left-hander Steve Carlton on Friday. And then In right field, Jim Dwyer. Keep in mind, too, Dan Ford still hurt. Bothered by a bad foot, not in the starting lineup tonight. Rick Dempsey is back of the plate for Baltimore, and on the mound is the left-hander Scott McGregor with a record of 18-7, a 3.18 ERA, and earlier Howard talked to Rick Dempsey about Scott McGregor.
He's basically a fastball, changeup, curveball. He'll throw in there every once in a while to keep the hitters honest. He doesn't really throw very hard. He's a finesse type of pitcher, and he'll just sit there and pick you on the outside corners until you turn blue from frustration. Scotty's got a real strong character out on the mound. He's got so much poise it rubs off on every pitcher on the pitching staff. Nothing ever bothers him. No situation that he's ever gotten in ever seems to really anger him on the mound. That's something I've never seen out of Scotty McGregor.
So Scott McGregor gets the start in Game 1, as he did in Game 1 of the League Championship Series, the only game the Orioles lost to the White Sox. So he pitched well. He was beaten by Hoyt. So here we go. Joe Morgan, who broke into the majors at the age of 19, leads off in the World Series at the age of 40. And takes high. 1-0 the count. Morgan got off to a terrible start, but you read and heard a lot about Joe in September. He led the team down the stretch. He got red hot, as did the Phillies. They reeled off 11 straight wins at one point in September and turned what looked like a great 4-team race into a rout. Good change, and the count is 1-2.
Well, one thing that Rick Dempsey failed to mention about Scotty McGregor is that he'll try to throw his fastball different speeds. He'll try not to throw the same speed fastball to any one hitter at any one at bat.
Morgan pops it up. McGregor calling, and then all of a sudden it's Cruz dropping the ball. McGregor was pointing toward Eddie Murray initially. Murray was nowhere in the area. There is a crosswind that is blowing quite briskly right now from basically the right field foul pole to the left field foul pole. And Cruz at the last moment figured he was the man, and he couldn't handle it.
Not a very good way to start off a World Series, but very understandably. The wind is blowing strong from right field to left field. The ball was jumping out of here in batting practice. Todd Cruz got under the ball, but then seemed to look for help. He should have taken charge, and Scotty McGregor should have been calling him all the way.
So a rather ignominious way for a team that got here through good fundamental baseball to begin. Rose is the batter, and Pete takes a strike, and the count is 0-1. I suppose the Phillies probably have more household names right now than any team in baseball. They have 3 of the great Reds, 3 of the big red machine in Morgan, Rose, and Tony Perez. And people like Matthews and Maddox, who have been around, and of course Steve Carlton and Mike Schmidt. So most are familiar faces. They send Morgan. It's swung on and missed, and the throw down to second. They nail him.
And we just saw one of the strongest arms in baseball behind the plate in Rick Dempsey's throw. Here we get to see it again. A good jump by Joe Morgan. Took a look at Pete. Pete was taken all the way. You'll see the throw arrive right on the money long before Joe Morgan got there.
Some might question whether or not Rick has the best arm of any catcher in baseball, thinking of Gary Carter. But if he doesn't, he is very close to it. He is a truly great defensive catcher. Reggie talked about Morgan's speed, and you just saw Dempsey nullify it.
And also blessed with outstanding agility.
The McGregor-Dempsey battery this year allowed only 2 stolen bases all season long. The pitch is low. I say battery because the pitcher and catcher each have a lot to do with whether a man's going to be successful or not in stealing. The Phillies are basically not a running ball club. Morgan will run from time to time, but their 2 top base stealers are on the bench as Rose strikes out.
The thing to remember about Scott McGregor as you look at this again is that he is always around that plate. A remarkable control pitcher. That was a little high and outside, but still he induced Rose to go for it. His average walks per game, only 1.6. Certainly one of the finest controlled pitches of our time.
He did exactly what he wanted to do with Pete. He threw him some breaking balls over the plate for strikes and then wasted a high fastball hoping that he'd go for it.
Schmidt hits it in the air to right field and curling into the corner, back out of play. Again, keep in mind the breeze is blowing from right to left. It's drizzling. There's Joe Altobelli, who took over for the man in the booth with us after Earl had been there for 14.5. The umpires, Marty Springstead back of the plate, then Vargo, Clark, Pulley, Palermo, and Rennert. And as you can see, they alternate by leagues, 3 from each league. It's also significant in that Springstead would also be back of the plate if there were a 7th game, as he begins there tonight.
Now, it doesn't take a dictionary or anything else to know that the man who must be controlled from the Birds' point of view is this man, Schmidt.
And the count, 1 ball and 2 strikes.
And I noticed from the first few pitches that Rick Dempsey's sitting on the outside of the plate, and Mike Schmidt definitely does have enough power to hit the ball out of the park to the opposite field. It's only 309 down the line, left field line and down the right field line, and Mike Schmidt can reach that easily.
Line to center field, but Bunbury has room and puts it away to retire the side. So the inning begins with an error on a dropped pop-up, but it does no damage, and after a half, Philadelphia nothing, and Baltimore coming up.
All dressed up and ready to go, and the start of the 80th World Series is just moments away. Taking the mound for Baltimore this night is Scott McGregor, who was the Oriole ace in '83 as he led the team with 18 wins. And as time comes to play ball, McGregor faces leadoff man Joe Morgan, who celebrated his 40th birthday in September by batting .337 for the month.
Let it double, Joe. Come on.
Playing in his 4th World Series, Joe Morgan is pumped with excitement.
Yeah, ball out there. When he gets below the stands, really comes back quick.
With Morgan now on first, the next batter is 6-time World Series veteran Pete Rose. And the Phillies are quick to show their aggressive style of play. Alert and ready, catcher Rick Dempsey is on target, and Morgan is out. Taking away the lead Philly runner, the Orioles are soon out of the inning.
Bring it on down there, Dipper. Bring it on down there, attaboy.
Let's look at the Phillies defensively. 42-year-old Pete Rose is at first base, and his junior partner is 40-year-old Joe Morgan at second. The shortstop is Ivan De Jesus, and over at third is a man who seems to annually win a Gold Glove. That's Mike Schmidt. In the outfield, where they like the platoon, the Championship Series MVP Gary Matthews is in left. Then Gary Maddox is in center. He'll be platooned with Greg Gross. And in right field, where they also platoon, it's Sixto Lizcano, who gets the start tonight. Joe LaFay will start against lefties. Bo Diaz is back of the plate. He in his 2nd season. And on the mound is the man who will probably be the comeback player of the year and maybe the Cy Young Award winner, John Denny, 19-6. Howard talked to about his reaction to being here yesterday.
Well, you know, when I look back over the chains of events that have happened in my life, if I were to think about when I was in Cleveland and think about some of the ups and downs I had at St. Louis because of managerial changes and some other problems there, no, I really have to say that looking back and being right here talking to you and getting ready to pitch the first game of the World Series tomorrow, it's truly a miracle in my life, and I'm just really thankful for everything.
So John Denny pretty much on the scrap heap with a bad arm last year in Cleveland, dealt at the end of the year to Philadelphia. Now the possible Cy Young winner, and he starts the first game of the World Series as Bunbury hits a liner to center, but right to Gary Maddox, who in Philadelphia is well known as simply the Secretary of Defense. One gone. Taking a look around the park, we talked about the short dimensions down the lines, 309. Then it fans out to the alleys, 376 and 405 to straightaway center. Grass and dirt playing surface, and a good one here in Baltimore, under the watchful eye for years of Pat Santarone.
Did a superb job, especially in the wake of the Colts' victory here on Sunday. They didn't think they could get it in this kind of shape. Well, you'll be seeing it for yourselves during the course of the contest. Just a superb groundskeeper.
Jim Dwyer is the batter. There is a term the Orioles like to use for a lot of the people like Dwyer, and it's called a role player. They know the roles. They know when they'll play. They know when they'll have to pinch hit or designated hit or do whatever they have to do. And Dwyer is another of the examples. Interestingly, too, Earl, the Orioles come in, we should point out at the outset, with a situation in which they have only 5 infielders, but they go with 9 outfielders on the roster.
Well, that's what gives them that bench strength and allows Joe Altobelli to start pinch hitting early and all the way through the ball game if need be.
The one weakness it might give him, though, down the line is, can he hit for his infielders with only 1 man to back up?
Well, he has a problem there. He has Len Sakata, who can play second base, and Richie Dower move over to third base. If anything should happen to Ripken, certainly they won't pinch hit for him, but Todd Cruz can move to the middle of the infield because he was a regular shortstop in the major leagues for a long time.
Meanwhile, Dwyer at the plate has a record of hitting Denny well.
And he chops that one foul. He also has a record of hitting well in this park. He hit .330 here this year and .237 on the road.
Well, we're watching 2 real good control pitchers here tonight. John Denny, Scotty McGregor. The thing I think that changed Denny's year around is being able to get his slow curveball over. He throws his curveball at 2 different speeds and throws it where he wants to.
That's it high in the air to right field and very deep, but into the wind, and still it goes out of here.
See what I mean?
Baltimore leads it by a score of 1-0 on a home run by the role player, Jim Dwyer, against the pitcher who this season allowed 1 every 27 innings.
And that's exactly what Reggie Jackson meant in the pregame show when he said, players you've never heard of. As you look at that stroke again, solidly hit, no question about it. And Reggie said, journeyman ball players become heroes with this team. And that's why I picked them, although it's very early, just the first inning of the first game. That's why Reggie picked the Birds to win this series.
And Ripken at the plate fouls it down to his dad. 0-1.
Well, the pitch that Dwyer hit was a fastball a little bit below the belt. And during batting practice, the ball was not going out to right field. It was jumping over the left field fence, and I was a little surprised to see that come so early.
Inside, 1 ball and 1 strike.
There's Happy Chandler, the former commissioner of baseball, ripped by many, really kicked out of office, but the man who brought and supported Jackie Roosevelt Robinson into baseball. Easy grounder to short over the first.
And Ripken is gone, so there are 2 down here in the first inning. And the crowd beginning to chant, Eddie, Eddie. His problems in postseason play, of course, have been well documented. He got off to a terrific start in the first 2 games of the '79 World Series, and then that was it. He went 0 for his last 21. He got off to a staggering start in the playoffs, so he's trying to get hot in postseason.
Well, I think during the 1979 series, the lack of the designated hitter, not being able to be in the game, hurt Eddie Murray, because Lee May had hit behind him all season, and when he hurt him the first 2 games, they refused to pitch to him. They pitched around him.
Switch hitter taking all away.
In the meantime, look at John Denny right there in that graphic. Best ratio among all NL starters in terms of home runs per game.
1 ball, 1 strike, the count on Eddie Murray. Murray led the Orioles in home runs. He had 33. And the Orioles as a team led the league with 168. He's way out in front. 1-2. There's Paul Owens at the age of 59. The general manager of the team, with Claude Osteen, the pitching coach, in the foreground. Owens coming down from the office on the 18th of July when they fired Pat Corrales. The Phillies were a game over 500, but in first place. Grounded to the left side and through for a base hit. So Murray reaching and poking it through the infield.
That's exactly what Eddie's going to have to do if he's going to have a high average in this World Series. They tried to go away from him. Eddie went right with it. You'll see it right here. The pitch was on the outside half of the plate. Eddie just went right out and got it to hit to left field. And Eddie has the power to hit the ball over the left field fence, just like Schmidt does have the power to hit the ball over the right field fence.
Not only that, you know he's going to be a better player in this series than he was in '79, which was his first series, Earl, and you had him.
He's got one under his belt, and it's going to mean a lot.
John Lowenstein, another of the role players. The left fielder tonight takes outside ball 1. Lowenstein, if you look at his career record, it's much like Dwyer, been around a long time, been shuffled around, and yet here they are in the World Series.
John's a player who helped himself by going on a Nautilus program and building up his upper body strength.
3-0 the count. Denny, you'll recall, was the only loser in Philadelphia's victory over the Dodgers. As Lowenstein gets the green light, they won 3 out of 4, and it was Denny who was beaten by Fernando Valenzuela in Los Angeles last Wednesday night.
Denny's control has not been pinpoint in his first inning, and I think we'll see it get better as the game goes along if Baltimore lets him stay in there.
Chop foul, 3 balls, 2 strikes, and so Murray will be taking off for the pitch.
Lowenstein is one of the great characters of the game. You'll be hearing from him during the course of this series, but he's a man with a line for every situation and everybody.
And not afraid to say it. Huh?
That's right.
3-2 pitch, got him swinging. Breaking pitch down and in on him, and the side is retired. But the Orioles take the lead in game 1 on a home run by Dwyer into the wind. The run, 2 hits, and a man left on. We'll go to the second in Baltimore. 1-0 Orioles.
Pitching for Philadelphia, John Denny. And with 1 out in the bottom of the first, he faces Jim Dwyer.
Hey, big one right here. Come on, Denny.
It's a home run for Jim Dwyer and a 1-0 lead for the Orioles. And with that hit, Dwyer becomes the 18th player to homer in his first time up in a World Series.
Dwyer hit 8 homers during the regular year, homers here, and Howard talked to him about starting tonight as opposed to his normal role pinch hitting.
Well, I would rather start than pinch hit. The thing that would drive you nuts about pinch hitting is just 0 for 1. You don't get that second chance. I try to I take pride in myself that I think why I'm a successful hitter is that I can adapt to a pitcher. If he's getting me out with breaking pitches, and I'll go up there the second or third time and I'll look for that pitch and take it away from him. When you're pinch hitting, you don't get that chance. You get the one at bat, he gets you out. He might get you out with a slider or a changeup or maybe the fastball inside. You don't get that second chance to go up there and make him adapt to you, because I'm certainly going to adapt to the pitcher.
1-0 in favor of Baltimore, with Lescano leading off by hitting a liner right to Ripken. Cal didn't have to move a step. So they take care of the cleanup hitter. And up comes Gary Matthews, who was a one-man wrecking crew last week against the Dodgers. Hit 3 home runs, drove in 8 in the playoffs, and hit 3 monstrous home runs.
This is going to be an interesting man to watch in this series, because he's going to be facing the canniest pitching in the big leagues with this Baltimore staff.
You're right, Howard, and they're going to have to do it with change of speeds. This fella has a quick bat.
1-0 the count. But if you throw this fella too many breaking pitches, he waits well, and if he expects it, he'll hit that one out. He hits it high in the air to center field. Bunbury is fading on it, has plenty of room, and Matthews is gone. 2 down here in the second inning, and that'll bring up Gary Maddox.
And the wind seemed to help that ball also out towards center field.
It did keep going, didn't it?
The wind still basically a crosswind from the right field foul pole to left field foul pole. And the rain still coming down, a drizzle, just a few umbrellas out. Most everybody else hooded in the stands, as Maddox waits at the plate with 2 down and the base is empty. A strike, 0-1. And from that shot, it looks like a little bit more than a drizzle, but then keep in mind the paucity of umbrellas there, so not coming down perhaps as hard as it looks. Fouled away, and the count 0-2.
The paucity of umbrellas.
You like that?
Excellent.
All right, thank you, sir. Do I get my degree from Yale now?
Maybe.
All right.
Got a way to go.
Good start. That one is foul tipped and held this time by Dempsey. So he rehearsed it once and then got it right the second time. Down to go in order at the end of an inning and a half. It's Baltimore 1, Philadelphia 0. And tomorrow night in Game 2, same time, 8 Eastern time, the rookie Charles Hudson, who pitched a masterpiece in the playoffs against Mike Boddicker, who threw one of his own. So the two rookies linking up in Game 2. Then on to Philadelphia for Game 3 on Friday. Bottom of the second inning, Rich Dower leading off by taking a strike. He'll be followed by Cruz and Dempsey. 1-0 Baltimore. One question about the Orioles, Earl, people seem to have. The bottom of the lineup appears to be so weak and is weakened even more minus the DH. Who is most likely amongst those at the bottom to have a hot series?
Well, Rich Dower can and has had hot streaks. He's one of the ball players that's hot and cold, and he could have an outstanding 5, 6, or 7 days. Rick Dempsey, I'm sorry to say, as good a defensive catcher as he is, if the Orioles are having trouble scoring runs and the bottom of their order is letting them down, Joe Altobelli has the option of going to a left-handed hitter in Joe Nolan, who can get the bat on the ball and produce offensively.
2 balls, 2 strikes, the count on Dower.
There is Joe Altobelli.
Count remains 2-2.
I like the way Reggie Jackson described Rich Dower. Nobody knows better than Earl Weaver, who got the most out of Rich and what he had to give. Nobody knows Rich better than Earl. He is a functional player. By that, as you look at that foul, I mean, he has a great capacity to execute the double play. He is a sure-handed fielder, protected territorially by the range of Eddie Murray, and he hits superbly well behind the runner.
And a very good hit-and-run man. You're right, Howard.
And they get him on a breaking pitch here, so Denny has successive strikeouts. He got Lowenstein to end the first, and Dower to start the second. He struck Lowenstein out on a breaking pitch low and in, and here he comes back with another curve.
Right there, that one was down below the belt, right where he wanted to throw it. And it looks like Denny is starting to put that curveball where he wants it now more often.
Todd Cruz comes up. This had to be the last place Todd would think he'd appear in October if you asked him along about June when he was playing in Seattle. 1-0.
They had a young third baseman. They started the season off, Leo Hernandez, who everybody in the Oriole organization thought was going to hit a lot of home runs, but didn't pan out this year. Had a little problems defensively and just didn't hit the way the Orioles thought he would.
Hernandez?
Yes.
1-2 the count here. And that's when they went out and they got Cruz about that time, who interestingly enough started his career in the Philly organization. He was drafted by them in 1973 and played with them, made his big league debut at Philadelphia in '78.
Denny wasted a fastball there. Todd Cruz is a pretty good fastball hitter, and he does have enough power to hit the ball over the left field fence.
Ball 3, full count.
Just missed with a pretty good curveball right there.
Cruz, who hit 199 this year, strikes out on another breaking ball. So Denny has now struck out 3 in a row, and there are 2 down in the second inning with Rick Dempsey, the number 8 hitter, coming up.
And that's the mark of a pretty good pitcher. Throw that breaking ball on 3-2.
Baltimore leading it 1-0 on a first inning home run by Jim Dwyer. A strike, 0-1 the count.
Rick Dempsey is capable of having hot streaks. He only hit 231 for the season, but I bet if we looked it up that all of that was hit on consecutive days. He can get hot just like Gary Matthews can, and really, believe this or not, could, if the Orioles score runs and he stays in there, might be a hitting star himself.
2 balls and 1 strike. Well, you never know. That's the beautiful thing about the World Series. Remember the name Al Weiss?
Yes, I do. Won the Babe Ruth Award against the Baltimore Orioles in the 1969 World Series.
Which may have been your greatest team. Easy play.
De Jesus throwing out Dempsey. And so Denny has a very easy second inning with a couple of strikeouts. Baltimore goes out 1-2-3. Game 1 of the 83 series. After 2, Orioles 1, Phillies nothing. Looking down upon Memorial Stadium in Baltimore. Earlier, Jim Palmer talked about this Oriole team versus the team that won it in '79.
Well, I would think that we're a little bit more confident, Howard. We've just played better. I think we have a stronger pitching staff. Guys like Mike Boddicker, Storm Davis. We've kind of gone with younger arms over the last couple of years, and I think that's been the key to our year. It doesn't mean that, obviously, we haven't done a lot of other things right. The defense has been superb with John Shelby, an addition in center field that's kind of helped. We've hit at times. We had 2 7-game losing streaks, but basically they were because we didn't hit. But other than that, I think we're a much more confident club. To go against a club like Chicago that had an outstanding year, maybe a better year than we had, and to beat them in 4 games, I think gave us a lot of confidence. So we're ready for the Phillies.
Baltimore leading it 1-0 in the 3rd inning. Bo Diaz, Ivan De Jesus, and John Denny facing McGregor. Bottom of the order. Diaz tailed off this year. They picked him up from Cleveland before the 1982 season, mainly for defense. They'd gotten rid of Bob Boone, and not only did he do the job defensively, he had a tremendous year offensively, and the folks that follow the club felt he might have been the team MVP last year, but this year he slacked off on offense. Little weak roller down to 3rd, and Cruz dispenses with him. 1 away.
Bo Diaz didn't hit for an average, but he gave the Philadelphia Phillies 15 home runs behind the plate, and that certainly had to help him.
1 gone, and here is Ivan De Jesus.
Well, Bo went to Cleveland, you'll recollect, Earl, in the Eckersley deal, and Gabe Ball at the time loved Bo's throwing arm, and he proved to be a better hitter than they expected. He traded him because Hasse had a big year.
De Jesus takes a strike. Ivan, the steady and very durable shortstop, foul tips that one. And he had a decent year, very good year against left-handers, in fact, hitting .300 against them, .254 overall. No balls, 2 strikes, 1 out, and the base is empty. And down he goes. 3 strikeouts, 1 in each inning for Scott McGregor.
Which is unusual. As you look at the graphic, you'll see that Scott has had much more success on the road than at home. Scott McGregor is not a strikeout pitcher. 3 a game is more his average, and he already has 3.
Well, he's throwing the ball right where he wants to. Scotty's a guy that admitted that he might have trouble sleeping last night with some butterflies in his stomach, a little nervousness, but he certainly hasn't shown it so far this ballgame.
It's the best trade you ever made when you got McGregor, Dempsey, Tippy Martinez, Rudy May, and the Yankees got Kenny Holtzman.
John
Denny. Worked out well.
At the plate, the count, no balls and 1 strike. On the subject of trades, it was a pretty good one for Denny, who hits it in the air to left field, and Lowenstein puts it away. So McGregor has faced the minimum 9, hasn't allowed a hit through 3 after 2.5 on the home run by Dwyer. It's 1-0 Orioles. That's the Goodyear Blimp America from Houston. Larry Chambers out of Spring, Texas is the pilot, and that's the view they're getting from up top. Memorial Stadium. It's an interesting ballpark. It's a park that a baseball fan would have to love. It's almost in the middle. It's a bit of a hybrid. It's not a downtown park or a suburban park. It's right in the middle of a neighborhood.
And I love it. And I love this city. It's maybe the national model for urban renewal. What they've done with this city is incredible. Mayor Schaefer, really responsible.
Here is McGregor swinging and missing. So McGregor is batting for the first time since the 1979 World Series.
You know, it's funny. He was a classmate and teammate of George Brett at El Segundo High School. And every year he out-hit George Brett. Don't translate that into true batting ability as the two are now, of course.
Well, he's a pretty good hitter, Howard. You bet on that.
I asked Brett about that one day. George says he was paying off the statistician. Denny working quickly, and the 1-2 pitch is outside. 2 balls and 2 strikes.
George's father is a Little League coach, as you know, Earl. And George's, Scotty's father, rather. And
that's a chopper to second. Joe Morgan has it on a second bounce and takes care of him. So at least McGregor makes contact.
Scotty's father says from grade school on, my boy was a better hitter than George.
Yes, he did.
But it changed.
1 away, and Al Bumbry will take his time about coming up to allow McGregor to get back to the bench. Bumbry fly to center field in the first inning.
He had a very bad series in '79, and many maligned him for it. But he also hit some tough luck, and as you saw in the very first inning, he had a line shot to center field, made good contact, and this remains a dangerous player.
In the air to left center field. Gary Matthews, with the wind pushing it back, makes the catch. 2 down. Anything hit that high is not going to be very routine because the flags are really starched.
And the pitching is running true to form. Both pitchers are throwing strikes. They're throwing it where they want in the strike zone and getting the hitters to swing at the first pitch.
This is going to be a tough series. The Phillies, a savvy ball club. And their strength in the clutch, never better evidence than by the September drive.
Jim Dwyer, who is the difference in the game. 1 for 4 in the championship series, a double. And his home run here in the second inning tonight, making it 1-0 with the count now 0-1. And the 3-2 to him is hit sharply, but right to Morgan. And Joe throws him out to retire the side. So that's 7 in a row set down by John Denny. And at the end of 3, still 1-0 Orioles. Well, Joe Morgan will be leading things off as we go to the 4th inning. Al Michaels, Howard Cosell, and Earl Weaver from Memorial Stadium in Baltimore. Game 1, Game 2 tomorrow night, then the off day on Thursday, and up I-95 we go. The interstate between here and the city of brotherly love. It's about 95 miles from downtown to downtown, Baltimore to Philly, and we'll be at the Vet for Game 3 on Friday night.
You can look at this series in another way, more dimensional. It's a tale of 2 cities, 2 great cities on the comeback.
Joe Morgan fouling the first pitch straight back, and a count 0-1. John Denny settling down after giving up the home run and the single in the first inning, having retired the last 7.
A great human interest story concerning a broken home and his dad. We'll get to that later.
Morgan chops it foul, and the count 0 balls and 2 strikes.
May I quickly make this point for all of you viewers? Well, isn't that interesting? Look at the umbrella. No paucity there.
Not right now. Not when you come into Tux. Still 0-2.
Point I was about to make concerns our colleague Earl Weaver. Earl Weaver has disassociated himself contractually from the Birds of Baltimore. He has signed a contract with the American Broadcasting Companies, and we are proud to say that he will be with ABC next year. And no matter what you see or what you hear or what you read, Mr. Weaver will not be managing. He will be in the ABC broadcast booth, and we're very proud.
I'm happy, Howard. I'm happy to be part of the team as Joe Morgan hits a hard single up the center of the field. I'm happy to be with the team and certainly happy to be here during the World Series.
Well, Joe Morgan has just picked up the first hit for the Philadelphia Phillies, going right back through the middle, as he has done numerous times in his career.
And I was very impressed with the way Joe Morgan hung in against Scotty's curveball. Every pitch to him at bat.
Pete Rose at the plate. Morgan went in the first inning. Now, the Phillies, as I mentioned before, not really a running club. Von Hayes and Bob Dernier lead the club in steals, and they are on the bench. But Morgan will go once in a while. They'll play hit and run once in a while. Maddox will also run once in a while, as will Matthews.
In the human sense, there is a great rapport between the man at bat and the man on first. Rose and Morgan. Rose, the indomitable competitor. Morgan, the teacher. He will be a great manager if given the opportunity.
And we saw on our split screen right there that when the pitch was going to home plate, Joe Morgan was running back to first base. Now he's complaining to the first base umpire that Scotty's foot has gone behind the rubber and then went to home plate. That's an automatic ball. If McGregor's right foot on his move to home plate goes behind the rubber, he cannot then throw the ball to first base.
Ed Vargo of the National League, the umpire at first base.
Well, I don't think they'll be running in this situation. I think they'll let Rose try to hit the ball in between the hole at first base and second base.
That's what he'll try to do. The graphic tells the story. There goes
He goes.
Joe.
It's grounded to third. They're still going to try for the force, and yes, they get it on a great play by Dower to somehow go sliding into the bag and have the presence of mind to keep his eye on the ball, get it in his glove, and tag second base with Morgan sliding in.
We get to see it again, and that's what Howard and Reggie were talking about in the pregame show. Dower somehow gets the job done. Here he comes in at almost the same time with the runner, had to change directions, reached down for the throw, and still was able to manage to make the tag. An outstanding play.
Another look right there. Now you would think normally that's an ill-advised play by Cruz at third with a runner going.
Well, they pick each other up. That was not a good throw to second base.
No, it was not. It was a poor throw. But Dower has such sure hands.
So one out, Rose is at first base, and the batter is Mike Schmidt, who fly into center in the first inning.
One hitter is the big man, Al, the man who must be contained. Now, Scotty's been giving up home runs this year. He's given up more than 20.
Well, Scotty's fastball is only 84, 85 miles an hour, and if he gets it in the wrong place, it can go a long way.
Like here, and there goes Bunbury back to the fence, but he makes the catch as he has room on the warning track, and Rose retreats to first.
I don't think the Orioles are going to be able to stay on the outside half of that plate consistently. They're going to have to move the ball in and out to Schmidt because he does have exceptional power to right field, and that ball might have been out of Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia.
And might have been out were it not for the wind, the crosswind right to left. But Bunbury had it all the way. And that's the second out. So 2 down with Rose at first base in the 4th inning. Baltimore leading 1-0, and the batter is Sixto Lizcano. Lizcano hit a home run in the clinching game on Saturday. Phillies beating the Dodgers 7-2. They picked him up just prior to the deadline. You can't pick somebody up after the 1st of September and have him eligible for postseason play. So on the 31st of August, he's playing with San Diego, and in fact, they were in Philadelphia. All he had to do was move over to the other clubhouse.
And Lizcano is strictly a fastball hitter, and I think Baltimore will be pulling a string and changing speeds on him. Art, as you've seen right there, throwing the fastball away from him.
Whitey Herzog had the highest regard for Lizcano's capacities, abilities. His problems, he felt, were attitudinal.
That's fouled back. And the count 2 balls and 1 strike.
Well, this fella has outstanding ability. He put together one tremendous year at Milwaukee.
That's right.
Foul tipped, and the count is 2 balls and 2 strikes. A check of Rose, and the 2-2 is inside. Full count. The man they wanted to play right field all year, and Rose will be going with this next pitch, is Von Hayes. But he was hurt early, never really got on track, and right now he's a reserve.
And slumped terribly when he got the shot.
And Lizcano strikes out swinging as McGregor keeps it away. In the inning, no runs. The Phillies get their first hit and 1 left after 3.5. It's Baltimore 1, Philadelphia 0. Those two did some damage this year, heavy damage. Cal Ripken will lead off, bottom of the 4th inning. Here's what Ripken said about the type of year he had.
Well, I'm very happy with the year I had. It's kind of an unbelievable year, I think, especially in the second half. I swung the bat. When I hit the ball hard, it seemed to land in. When I didn't hit the ball hard, when I got jammed or hit off the end of the bat, it seemed to fall in too. It was just one of those halves. Hopefully I can duplicate that sometime in the future. But I've had a great deal of fun this year. I've been lucky enough to play on a winning team. Our team is a good team and has good players and has good people too. So I just feel fortunate enough that I am an Oriole right at this point.
0-1 the count on Cal Ripken.
He's a terrific kid, but he does have trouble, by his own admission, hitting John Denny.
Yes, he does, but he does have one home run off of him, Howard. And if Denny gets the ball in the wrong spot, we might see another long one.
Bottom of the fourth inning, Baltimore on top, 1-0 on a home run by Jim Dwyer, just off the plate. 1-2.
What Cal Ripken Jr. is going to have to guard against is impatience and swinging at bad pitches in his first World Series.
Fights that one off and bounces it through the right side for a base hit.
And that's just what he was talking about in our interview. John Denny made a real good pitch, fastball on the inside half of the plate. It jammed Ripken. He got hit on the fist with it and barely made it through the infield. See it right there. A place where he's not supposed to hit the ball, but it turns into a one-base hit.
Now let's see about Mr. Murray, who went with the pitch last time up, singled to left field.
If he does that a few times in this series, they might change the pattern and start pitching him inside. And if they do, then Eddie will be looking to go deep.
Eddie Murray goes after the first pitch and fouls it away. 0-1 the count.
And with the cut he had there, it looked like he went up there looking for that breaking ball. Just a little bit slower than he anticipated, and that's part of Denny's success, changing speeds on that overhand curveball.
And he slices it foul into the exposed upper deck, and the count, no balls and 2 strikes.
There is the President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, together with Edward Bennett Williams, the noted lawyer who is the owner of the Birds of Baltimore. We knew he was coming for security reasons. We didn't want to announce it, but they announced his presence to the crowd an inning or so ago. So now we feel at liberty to tell you that he is here. And as you know, at one time in his life, a sports broadcaster and a great and devoted baseball fan.
That's grounded down to short slowly. DeJesus shovels to Morgan, and that's all they'll get. Ball hit too softly to turn 2. As Ripken is erased, and Murray is now at first, and John Lowenstein will be the batter.
And John Denny has got that fastball in on 2 pretty good hitters. So 2 real good power hitters right on the fist with that fastball. And that's a result of setting him up with the curveball, the slow curveball.
Earl, you never heard the president do a baseball recreation in his sportscasting days, did you?
No, I didn't.
Off the teletype?
But I saw him sitting there next to Mr. Edward Bennett Williams laughing, and Mr. Edward Bennett Williams has a tremendous sense of humor.
1-0 the count on Lowenstein. Yeah, the days of the recreated games with the pencil and banging against the wood, the crowd noise.
How would you know? You weren't born.
I did it in '68, Howard.
Did you really?
Hawaii, sure. 1-0 pitch. Up and away. And you know how much liberty you can take when you're recreating a ball game, don't you?
I know some guys who sure did. President tells a story where he took lessons from a guy who did.
In the air to left center field, and hanging as Matthews comes in and makes the catch. So Lowenstein is gone, and that's the second out here in the 4th inning.
And John Denny is certainly getting that fastball in good spots now, too. That's the 3rd hitter in a row he hit right on the knuckles.
This has turned into exactly the kind of ball game we expect in this World Series. Hotly contested from beginning to end. 2 excellent teams.
There goes Murray as Dower hits a chopper to short. Takes an easy hop for DeJesus, and that's that. So we played 4 very quick innings in Baltimore. Jim Dwyer homered in the first, and that's been the whole story. We'll go to the 5th, 1-0, Orioles. Other news in sports today, you know that Ed Biles quit yesterday at Houston, Howard.
And Chuck Studley, assistant, named head coach of the Houston Oilers. Not an easy task. This is a human tragedy. Michael Ray Richardson, utterly superb basketball talent, waived by the Jets. Don't forget this weekend, ABC's NCAA college football, #1 rated Nebraska against Missouri. Ray Richardson failed to report to a drug rehabilitation center, another part of the tragic societal problem. Base hit.
Gary Matthews leading off here in the 5th inning with a second Philadelphia hit. Morgan led off in the 4th with a single. And they have not advanced a man past first base to this point off McGregor.
Got a low breaking ball inside, and you'll watch him here on the screen rooted in. He was afraid it was going to be one of those hard hit line drives right at the shortstop.
Gary Maddox at the plate. He struck out in the 2nd inning. And he pops it up. He is not a very patient hitter. He often swings at the first pitch, and Dempsey leans in but has no play, and he's mad. It's a play that was similar to the one in Philadelphia the other day in a way, where Mike Schmidt went over and somehow was able to come out of the 2nd row with a baseball, but not here for Rick.
Now, if the fan had reached over the fence and touched Dempsey while he was still on the field, the umpire could have called fan interference and called the hitter out. But here we can plainly see that Dempsey's in the 2nd row, and some fan just happened to tip it out of his glove.
Strike 2 pitch to Gary Maddox is grounded sharply to short. Ripken cradles it, goes to Dower, back to first, double play.
Well, in this instance, it worked in Baltimore's favor. Real hard hit ground ball to Ripken. You'll watch it come up at the last minute and kind of handcuff him. Up it came. Ripken made a nice play, took his time, gave Rich Dower a real good throw at first. The relay to first for the double play.
So 2 down. Maddox has lost a little speed over the years. When he first came up, he could fly and probably would have beaten it out.
Ball was hit mighty hard, Al.
Diaz grounded out in the 3rd inning. Two and 0. He might have only beaten it out only because of that little cradle job by Ripken at that point. But Ripken, who, of course, I don't have to tell you, Earl, spent a lot of time at 3rd base last year before going over to shortstop, is playing that position like an all-star.
Well, he's a real good 3rd baseman. I was fortunate enough to have watched him work out here as a high school junior and senior.
That's hit to center field, deep but playable, and Bunbury one-hands it to retire the side. So the Phillies, who hit only .249 as a team during the regular season, start the World Series with 2 singles in the first 5 of Game 1. As Scott McGregor holds them in check to this point, and in the middle of the 5th inning, it's still 1-0 the Orioles in Game 1. Well, Memorial Stadium, Baltimore, Maryland. Talk about having any problems getting into the parking lot. Not when you show up with Mr. Earl Weaver in this town. Anywhere.
Well, we got here at 4:30.
That's why.
No, Earl owns the town, and deservedly so. One of the great moments in contemporary sports history, when last year in the final game, the Birds lost to the Brewers. Brewers won the pennant as a result, and the crowd wouldn't let Earl go away.
Todd Cruz swings and misses to start the bottom of the 5th inning. Jim Dwyer, who hit the home run in the 1st inning. Interesting, think back to the National League Championship Series last week. A game was won on 1 pitch. Mike Schmidt's home run, 1st game at Dodger Stadium. Carlton and Holland combined for the shutout.
We got a long way to go yet. I think the Birds are going to need more runs.
Well, they'd certainly like to have him, and with the wind blowing that hard out to left field and a left-hander on the mound for Baltimore, 1 run doesn't seem very secure.
2 balls and 2 strikes to count on Todd Cruz. Cruz playing 3rd. Well, we have this graphic, of course, during the year that goes who's not, who's hot, who's not. And there is the ultimate who's not. That's the end of the season.
We have no intention of embarrassing our colleague for this series on the pregame shows, Mr. Jackson. His record long-term speaks for itself. One of the great players.
The point there was that Cruz is in the top 5. He is in second place as he grounds out to De Jesus. And there's one down.
Cruz had a good cut of the fastball there.
Catcher,
Rick Dempsey grounded out in the second inning. Baltimore with 3 hits.
I'd like to note, Al, that De Jesus has had a tremendous year. And Pete Rose says he's been the most valuable player on the ball club.
Well, he's a steady shortstop.
Chopper to third, backhanded by Schmidt. He sees his first defensive action and throws him out. Good stretch by Rose. 2 down, and that's 5 in a row. And 12 of the last 13 retired by Denny as you see Schmidt going to foul ground, but he makes that play with great regularity.
We saw that ball almost bounce over his head, and we're on dirt and grass here. If we were on artificial turf, you might have seen a double down the left field line.
That's true. And yet there is Schmidt, the Golden Glover, almost perennially, making it look easier than it is.
McGregor grounds one down to second softly. Morgan with good range and throws him out, and that's a very quick inning on 3 ground balls. Orioles are out. We'll go to the 6th with the score still Baltimore 1, Philadelphia nothing. Back after this word from your local stations.
Here's Mr. October, the original. And I must say, briskly paced game, your analysis so far holding together.
Well, right now, Howard, you see real good pitching. You see the ball clubs not making any mistakes. A couple of guys have hit the ball good, Matthews, and of course Schmidt has hit the ball good, but McGregor is keeping the ball away from him, using the big part of the ballpark. Great baseball, 2 good teams, nobody's making any mistakes. We're going to see some good baseball.
I think it's going to be this way throughout the series.
So do I. It's what everybody expects and it's what everybody wants in a World Series.
Thank you, Reg. Back to Al Michaels, the play-by-play.
And Ivan De Jesus leads off in the 6th inning. Fly ball right field. Dwyer is there, makes the catch. 1 away. The Orioles not only getting great pitching during the regular season, as you look at Paul Owens and Bobby Wine, one of the Philly coaches and a candidate perhaps to succeed Owens, but the Orioles finished the American League playoffs with 17 shutout innings against the White Sox, and they haven't allowed a run through 5 tonight, so that's 22 consecutive innings for the Oriole pitchers in postseason play. Scoreless. Tries to push a bunt, does Denny, and the count is 0-1. Chub Feeney, president of the National League.
Yep.
Come on, John.
Oh, he's still got the old spirit. Dartmouth College. And there is the departing commissioner. A man who deserves, I think, some mention. A man of character, never wavered. Baseball man through and through. Wasn't easy. He was put out of office by a hugely minority vote. He can't handle himself with grace, and he still is. And I can tell you, without specifics, because those I can't disclose, he's going to be heard from still with some major moves.
2 balls and 1 strike. Well, now that you've titillated us,
I cannot go further. I'm sorry.
All right. The 2-1 pitch swung on and missed, and it's 2-2. And that's called strike 3. He took just a little something off it. And John Denny is down on strikes, and that's 5 strikeouts for McGregor, who came in averaging 3 a game. The season high was 6.
Good breaking ball right on the inside half of the plate. Denny didn't seem to think it was a strike, but it got pretty much of it. And I'd like to say that Marty Springstead, the home plate umpire, is doing a very good job up to this point.
And that's a major scoop, folks, because Marty Springstead and Ron Luciano are tied for most ejections of Earl Weaver. Lifetime, 9. Last night, Springstead saw Weaver, honest, folks, in a restaurant and said, if I knew that I'd been tied by Luciano, I would have thrown you out once more.
Well, he said he was sorry that I retired because he'd have gotten me this year. He's one of the few people that might be sorry I retired.
Oh, come on.
Marty Springstead. This year, again, it used to be on a rotation basis, and now it is on what they call the merit system that the umpires are selected for postseason play. As Morgan pops it foul, back of first base. There's a little bit of room over there, but not enough as it lands on top of the dugout.
I like Palmer's crack about you, your old buddy. He said Weaver will be the only man ever thrown out of a television booth.
He could be right. I'll tell you, I'm really impressed with the way Joe Morgan is standing in and having good cuts against Scotty McGregor.
He's only twice been the MVP.
Back-to-back. And when he was the MVP in 75 and 6, both teams, the Reds of those years, won world championships.
When you have a second baseman who can produce offensively the way he did in those years, it's something.
A smallish man as you look at him in terms of height. One of the biggest men ever to play his position and the oldest to play second base. Look
in
at
the
that.
air to right field.
Look
and
at that.
Dwyer is going all the way back, and it's out of here.
There you go.
And into the wind again.
And you called it, Earl. You said you liked the way he was standing up there. And he hung in there.
Well, he seemed to be looking for a breaking ball, and that's what he got. That stayed on the inside half of the plate.
That man has the upper body strength of a fullback. Look at him.
Stayed right there, had that good cut. Didn't give an inch in any at bat.
So the game is tied 1-1 on the home run by Joe Morgan. Just clearing the marker at the 376 sign. Another look at a classic swing. It still is. Rose fouls it back.
Only older man ever to play second base in a World Series. Fellow named your time, Earl, Rabbit Miranda.
Not before my time, Howard. That's a little bit before my time.
Not mine.
0-1 pitch to Rose is grounded to short. Ripken waits and throws to first to retire the side. But it's been Dwyer and Morgan as you watch Joe's reaction with the ball just clearing the barrier and the Philly bench in the background. And the hand clapping of Darren Johnson, the first base coach. As Morgan ties it, that's his second career World Series homer after 5.5. Phillies won, Orioles won.
That 1-0 lead holds up over the next 4 innings. But in the top of the 6th with 2 out, Joe Morgan is at bat again.
Get it done, Joe. Come on.
Paul Owens asked Morgan for a double, but the skipper is soon to have his pleasure doubled.
Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here. Good boy, Joe. Breaking ball.
Whatever the pitch, Morgan has hammered it, and the game is tied. Guarding against a letdown, a trip to the mound is made by pitching coach Ray Miller.
How you doing, Maggie?
I'm terrible, I think.
Well, you pitched a hell of a ball game at this point. I know we got to get some runs some kind of way here sooner or later. I think we have to, but give me a little concentration and hold them off right there and we'll do something, okay? Come on.
McGregor takes heed, and the Phillies are held in check.
Game 1 of the 1983 World Series, Memorial Stadium in Baltimore. Phillies won, Orioles won, and as we go to the bottom of the 6th inning, it's the top of the order for the Orioles. Al Bumbry, Jim Dwyer, and Cal Ripken. Bumbry has flied to center and flied to left. 0 for 2. John Denny works for the Phils. He bluffs a bunt, and it's low, ball 1. Jim Dwyer hit a home run in the 1st inning. And that stood up until Joe Morgan homered with 2 out in the 6th. Each team with 3 hits. 1-1 to count.
This is some ball game. Everything a World Series game should be.
Yes, it is. We got pitching and home runs. When I came to the park today, if I thought there were home runs hit, I thought they'd go over the left field fence. But both home runs have been hit into the wind.
Another one in the air for Bumbry, and so 3 times he has flied out. This time to Maddox. And there's 1 down. Well,
Jim
Great. Great sign. As Dwyer comes up, let's have a look back at what happened in the first inning. Probably the only real mistake Denny has made to this point. Pitch a little bit too fat, and out it went.
Well, it was only the second hitter of the game, and he was still trying to establish his curveball and his fastball.
He's pitched brilliantly ever since.
Hit foul off to the right, and the count is 0-1.
George just saw that sign, watching down in Tampa, Florida. Not designed to make him happy. There'll be some changes made.
Popped up. Foul ground. And that's playable for Diaz. 2 down. What that sign also indicates is the difference in the philosophies of the two organizations, where the Yankees have gone into the free agent market, have been freewheeling spenders, and the Orioles have basically eschewed the free agents. They've picked up a selected one here and there to play a role, but mainly have built from within and made some judicious trades.
What does that do to the oft-reputed theory that free agency would destroy the game? The rich teams would take over.
Remember that? Sure, that's what people were saying in the mid-70s.
Well, that hasn't transpired. And that's due to good baseball judgment and sound baseball organizations.
Ripken takes a strike. Well, the Orioles are getting their due now in the front office as well as on the field. Last week, a feature story on the front page of the Wall Street Journal about how this team operates. First time ever, the club has drawn over 2 million people.
Yeah, back in 69, 70, and 71 when we won the American League Championships, they were only drawing, we had trouble drawing 1 million of one of those years.
As I recall, there were some empty seats here in the 1970 World Series against Cincinnati. Just a few.
Believe this or not, I think that was due to inclement weather.
Not too many empties tonight. Fouled away. Stays 1-2. And a half swing, and down he goes. So Ripken strikes out. And at the end of 6, with Baltimore going out in order, it's still Philadelphia 1, Baltimore 1.
You're the umpire, as in television presents You Make the Call. With a runner on first, the batter swings and hits the catcher's mitt before he hits the ball. The result is a grounder to short and a play at second. But is the runner out? You make the call.
2 burgers to go, please.
Introducing Burger Time, the new home video game where you're the chef trying to make hamburgers. There's just one problem. The food is trying to make hamburger out of you. Another hot new arcade game for Intellivision, Burger Time. With arcade-like super graphics, only on Intellivision.
We are closed now. Since the catcher interfered with the swing, the batter gets first base, and the runner goes on to second. So if you said the runner was not out, then you made the right call.
Mike Schmidt will lead off. Schmidt playing in his second World Series. He was a part of the '80 team and talks about what it's like the second time around for him.
I'm not going to be totally relaxed when the World Series starts. I'm going to have some butterflies. I'd be darned if any player that's standing on those white lines when they introduce you prior to a World Series, if you don't have some butterflies, and if you aren't excited about being where you are, because you know, there's a whole lot of major leaguers sitting there watching on TV that that wish they were standing on those white lines. You shouldn't be out there. I think one of the reasons that we are out there, and one of the reasons that the Orioles are out there, are because we get a little pumped up in those situations.
So Mike Schmidt to lead off a 1-1 tie in the 7th inning. He has twice flied to center. 1-0 the count.
I respect the man who's not afraid to say he gets a little bit nervous. I talked to Mike Boddicker, tomorrow night's starter for the Baltimore Orioles. I asked him if he had started to get nervous yet. He said, "What for?" I said, "I always did when I was sitting there waiting for the World Series to start."
You sent Boddicker back 3 times.
What? I don't know if it was 3, Howard.
2 at least. There's Joe Morgan. What a remarkable athlete.
It is. Well, Howard, he didn't get that breaking ball over the plate consistently, and there were some pretty good pitchers ahead of him on the Baltimore pitching staff.
1 ball, 1 strike the count. We'll see Boddicker tomorrow night. And rookie Charles Hudson. Schmidt gets under it, pops it a mile high in foul ground. Cruz comes all the way back but has no play. 1-2. And Schmidt strikes out.
Oh, he gave him the high, and for McGregor, hardly. McGregor has only thrown 68 pitches thus far, and 52 of them strikes.
In the bullpen now for Baltimore, Sammy Stewart throwing.
Meanwhile, Denny has thrown 83 pitches, 54 of them for strikes.
That's good
superb pitching performances, no question.
Sixto Lezcano. It's a grounder toward the hole. It's Ripken who fields. Strong arm. So Ripken with decent range. They talk about his range to the left more so than to the right off times. That time he was able to go over, and he exhibits a pretty good throwing arm.
Well, he went in the hole, deep in the hole right here, got himself set, made a tremendous throw to first base. But here's a fellow who was a pitcher in high school also and pitched a couple no-hitters. I was talking earlier about the move to shortstop by Cal Ripken Jr., and I was fortunate enough to watch him work out at shortstop while he was still in high school. His father brought him out, hit him some ground balls. I got to hit him some ground balls, and there was no doubt in my mind that this fella could play that position.
He not only played it this year, he played every inning of every game. Matthews at the plate. Takes outside, ball 1.
And that's a big reason why he has to be considered for the most valuable player in the American League.
Well, if he doesn't get it, the reason might be the fellow who hits behind him is going to split the vote.
That's right.
By the way, if you're wondering about the MVP and Cy Young and Rookie of the Year, postseason play has nothing to do with it. Those ballots went in the day the regular season ended, and that's it.
Good point.
Postseason play matters not at all, so whoever the MVP is, he has already been selected, but it won't be announced until sometime in the next couple of weeks. Fouled away. 2-2. 2-2 is lifted in the air to right field. Dwyer got a good start, and he makes the catch to retire to the side. That's another 1-2-3 inning for Scotty McGregor, and so the Orioles will come to bat in the bottom of the 7th inning in game 1. Score time, 1-1.
Baseball fever. Catch it. It lasts forever.
The preceding message was furnished by Major League Baseball.
Nothing but a funny running gritter. Oh, thank God.
John Denver, his rendition of Country Boy, which is what they normally play on the PA system here in the 7th inning. It is such a popular song that earlier this year they decided to play another record. As you watch what went on here just moments ago. Well, we started to say they changed the tune in the 7th inning earlier this season, and they booed the other record right out of here.
The fans really love it, and they have a good time.
It's a lovely scene.
Work when it should. Thank God I'm a country boy. When the work's all done and the sunset low, pull out the
So John Denver, who sang the national anthem, singing to the crowd as we go to the bottom of the 7th inning. Philadelphia 1, Baltimore 1. Again, the scoring, Dwyer a home run in the bottom of the 1st inning. Second man up for Baltimore off John Denny. And then Joe Morgan countered with a home run in the 6th inning. 1 run, 3 hits, and 1 error for Baltimore. 1 run, 3 hits, and no errors for the Phillies. Eddie Murray John Lowenstein and Rich Dower come up in the 7th inning. Murray has singled and grounded out. Waves at an off-speed pitch. Two good control pitchers, two pitchers who work quickly, so the game has been rapidly paced. And we have not had a walk tonight.
Eddie Murray has gone to the plate with thoughts of putting the Orioles out ahead. And John Denny knows it, and it was a very good changeup on the first pitch.
1 ball, 1 strike to count. Lee McPhail, the retiring American League president.
He will head up the Player Relations Committee. He's one of baseball's staple people, has been for decades.
Was the general manager of both the Baltimore Orioles and the New York Yankees at one time.
Was a primary factor in the beginning of the Baltimore baseball dynasty.
2-1 to Murray, backs him off the plate.
His father was one of the greatest, most colorful men I ever knew in baseball. Brought night baseball into being.
Yes, he did, and I had the pleasure of knowing his father.
Lowenstein to follow. Murray backing out. To count 3 balls and 1 strike. Little chopper down to Rose, and he'll do it himself. 1 away here in the bottom of the 7th inning, and it will bring up John Lowenstein.
Well, Denny made 2 real good pitches on 3-1 and 3-2 fastballs to hit very little to the inside part of the plate.
Dwyer a home run, Morgan a home run. That's been the story. Interesting with Morgan, everybody said, well, Joe might have had the worst year of his career, and that's possible. He had a great September, but still, it's all relative. He finished 2nd on the team in home runs and 3rd on the club in runs batted in.
Oh, is he working that curve, isn't he?
Very good pitching.
0-1 the count on Lowenstein.
Got to have feeling for that man, John Denny, even as you look at John Lowenstein. I mentioned early on a great human interest story and said we'd develop it later. Maybe with this kind of performing, this is the time. Product of a broken home. Parents separated. Father went to Australia when he was but a lad, 5 years old.
Grounded sharply. That's a base hit, and it's a base hit because Rose was guarding the line. So it opened up just enough of a hole for Lowenstein, and he takes advantage of it by poking it through.
To continue the story quickly, if I may, Al, he grew up, by his own admission, bitter, as you look at the hit again, with Rose, as you said, guarding the line. He grew up bitter and hating his father. Now he's changed, he's matured, there is no bitterness, and the family is being reunited. His father will be with him when the World Series opens in Philadelphia.
Tremendous story. And this is a hit-and-run situation with John Lowenstein on first and Rich Dower at the bat, and Philadelphia was expecting it.
They were reading what you were saying as they pitch out. 1 ball and no strikes.
Well, we've said Dower is a great hit-and-run batter. Marvelous at advancing the runner.
Dower is not fast afoot, and he grounds into a lot of double plays. It opens up holes on the infield for the ball club.
In the air to left center field, Gary Maddox taking charge. And that's the 2nd out here in the 7th inning. So 2 down. Lowenstein still at first base. And Todd Cruz is the batter.
I tell you, Al, you made a big point early on when you talked about weakness down at the bottom of this Baltimore lineup.
Well, right now, when you look at the 6 through 9 spots, they are a collective 0 for 9 tonight. Again, as you look at that bottom of the lineup, keep in mind also the roster structure, the fact that Dower and Cruz are 2 of the fellas and they're infielders, and there's only 1 backup infielder, that's Sakata. Breaking pitch swung on and missed, and the count 0-1.
Lowenstein at one time in his career was a good base stealer in the American League. He slowed down just a little bit, but he's the type of player that you might give the go if you get the jump sign, and he can steal your base in this situation.
0-1 pitch, a fastball for a strike, and the count no balls and 2 strikes on Todd Cruz. They're the available pinch hitters for him, and as you can see, he's got Nolan, and then at the bottom, Singleton and Shelby are switch hitters. Everybody else right-handed. Slow bouncer down to second. Joe Morgan records the out at first base as Cruz is thrown out. And that's that for Baltimore as they go relatively quietly in the 7th inning. No runs, 1 hit. 1 man left on. There, the line score and the totals after 7 innings in Game 1 with Maddox, Diaz, and De Jesus coming up in the top of the 8th inning. A 1-1 tie in Game 1 on a drizzly night. It's been played in a steady drizzle here in Baltimore. All right, let's go to Howard Cosell.
It's our honor, our privilege to have with us the President of the United States. Mr. President, I think this game is living up to everything one would expect from a World Series.
It certainly is. I haven't seen one as tight as this that I can remember, at least for a long time, or even remember one that has been 7 hits and 2 of them have been home runs.
I remember you're telling the story of one you called off the teletype.
You mean the one where I called the game that wasn't going on?
That's right, sir.
Yes, it was the 9th inning, Cubs and Cards, 0-0 and nothing. And the wire went dead. I was doing a telegraphic report. Billy Jurgis at the plate. So I decided that maybe I'd take a chance, and I had him foul one. And then I had him foul another one. Then I had him foul one. It was almost a home run. And then I described the 2 kids that got one that he fouled back a third. Well, I went on till I was setting a world record for foul balls. And they did finally get the wire fixed while I still had him at the plate. And the first word that came into me was that he popped out on the first ball pitched.
Most exciting game I've ever heard. How do you see this, sir?
Well, this is a great ball game and a great pitcher's duel that is going on out there.
How do you maintain your neutrality?
It ain't easy. But I realize I can't have favorites anymore.
Mr. President, thank you so much for joining us. It's
well,
Howard, indeed.
Well, it's my pleasure. Good to be here.
Enjoy the rest of it, sir.
All right.
And now we'll go back to Al Michaels and the play-by-play.
All right, Howard. And as John Denny continues to roll along, Howard touched upon that story with him earlier.
Well, I came from a broken family at an early age. My mom and dad divorced, separated at age of 5 and divorced eventually when I was about 10 years of age. And I had a lot of bitterness towards my father, bitterness towards my brothers, my sister, and my mom. I think that I can speak not only for myself, but many people around this country and around this world who has been in the same situation. My situation is not unique to anybody. That when you come from broken families and there's problems arising in that family, that you're going to have problems as you grow up. And I had a lot of problems.
So John Denny elaborating upon the story that Howard Cosell brought up in the bottom of the 7th inning. As we move now to the top of the 8th inning, it is Maddox who leads off with a drive to left field into the corner and gone. Gary Maddox, who hit 4 during the regular season. He has always had deceiving power. He has never had the big home run totals, but he's a guy who has been capable over the years of hitting them out, and with more frequency than he has exhibited.
Well, that was a fastball. It was up above the belt on the inside half the plate. He got the head of the bat around, and it jumped out over the left field fence. Those are the type of home runs that I expected to see tonight, not the ones to the right field.
But Scotty McGregor this year has thrown a lot of home run balls, a point we made earlier on. And now you get a sense of the tenacity of this Philadelphia team, the momentum that they displayed during the September song that they wrote. And now Philadelphia has the upper hand. And that's Sandra Maddox, Gary's wife. And this team has a feeling about it, no question.
Well, now we'll get to see Joe Altobelli go to his bench in the bottom of the 8th inning.
That pitch right down the middle for him. And Gary Maddox, who's had some problems in postseason play. He was the GOAT in the '78 playoffs. dropping Baker's line drive in Game 4. Then he dropped Valenzuela's ball the other night, but that really didn't matter the way it turned out. But still, for Maddox, he's had some tough times in postseason play. That's his first home run in the 2 World Series in which he has played, as Diaz hits one to deep left field. That one has a chance, and that one is caught by Lowenstein.
Outstanding play by John Lowenstein. He got back to the wall. I think he knew he was going to catch it all the way. He went up at exactly the right time. The ball is a home run, and John brought it back from over the fence.
What a great piece of timing. Never throw Bo Diaz the high pitch.
He got one there.
That's what he kills.
So one long out. De Jesus pounces on the first pitch and grounds to short. So there are 2 away. And John Denny will come up with 2 out and the bases empty, and Philadelphia leading it by a score of 2-1.
McGregor seems to be tiring, and with the pitcher coming up, it's a break for the Baltimore Orioles, because Joe Altobelli does not have to go out and remove his pitcher and make a multiple change here, because Scotty McGregor is due to hit the next inning.
Well, I don't like to do this. It's done so often on all networks. It's self-serving. But that was a simply marvelous camera shot.
Yes, it was.
Lowenstein making that catch.
Denny hits a little chopper toward third. Cruz throwing on the run and gets him. So it was a quick inning, but a costly one for McGregor, because Philadelphia takes the lead on the home run by Gary Maddox. And at the end of 7.5, it's the Phils 2, the Orioles 1.
Through 7 innings, pitching has been dominant. Each team scoring only once as the ball game moves to the 8th. In 2 previous trips to the plate this night, the 8th inning's leadoff hitter Gary Maddox has struck out and grounded into a double play. Finding his stroke at just the right time, Maddox has homered to put the Phillies ahead 2-1. And it's been a game in which all the scoring has come on solo homers. First Dwyer, then Morgan, and now Gary Maddox.
Let's go, Gary.
The next man up in the inning is Bo Diaz. Diaz is out, and a replay shows just how incredible John Lowenstein's catch really was. Baltimore's brother Lowe going high to rob Diaz of a home run. And for the Orioles, that's something to shout about.
Another look now, a couple of angles at that catch by Lowenstein, and no question about it, that's a home run if he doesn't come up with it. And it would have been 3-1. Timing his lead perfectly against the padding and reaching over. And the back view now.
He also made sure that while he was bringing his arm back in the ballpark, that he didn't hit the top of the fence, because sometimes that knocks the ball out of your glove. There is a tremendous shot. We can see just how far his arm is over the fence, and he was careful when he brought that arm back. Outstanding effort.
Meanwhile, it's raining steadily now, and a little harder than it was earlier. And the Baltimore Orioles will be going to the bench in the person of John Shelby, who platoons with Al Bunbury. Now, he's going to hit for Dempsey.
Attention, please.
What it amounts to is Altobelli is now behind. He's got 2 innings in which to do it. And he has to take Dempsey out and bring up Shelby here.
And one of the reasons he's not using Joe Nolan, because Joe is also slow of foot. If John Shelby gets on first base, he's got an outstanding base runner. And also, with Al Bunbury being the 3rd hitter in this inning, we might see some of those multiple player moves with Shelby moving into center field.
You've got Shelby leading off, then McGregor is due up, and then Bunbury. So 8, 9, and 1 in the lineup, and it looks like Danny Ford is coming out into the on-deck circle. Nope, make it Benny Ayala. The next pitch is up high, and the count 2 balls and no strikes.
We got Joe Nolan coming out.
Joe Nolan is coming out. Joe Nolan is now the man. So Altobelli will go to the bench and send up, I would imagine, contingent upon what Shelby does. A strike here. And the count 2-1. If let's say Shelby gets the first base, does Alto then want to maybe change and go to his best bunter?
Well, Joe can bunt the ball. Joe's going into the ball game anyway, so Joe is utilizing his players right now to the best of his advantage.
Here's the 2-2 pitch, and it just misses.
Mighty close.
3-2.
Shelby will be sitting on a fastball in this situation.
He gets one, but can't make contact, or not enough contact, as he foul tips it into the glove of Bo Diaz. 4 strikeouts now for John Denny.
This is a superb pitching performance. They are going for Denny's pitches. He is giving nothing away. Now we come to Nolan as the man who knows the strengths and weaknesses of these relatively unknown men on the Baltimore bench. Earl, tell us about Joe Nolan.
Well, Joe Nolan is a good defensive catcher. He doesn't have Rick Dempsey's arm. He doesn't have his agility. He's a little bit slow of foot. That's why Altobelli did not lead off with him. If Joe gets on, they're not going to be able to pinch run because Baltimore carries but 2 catchers. Lenny Sakata is their 3rd catcher, forced into an emergency. But with the sacrifice completely out of order, now with 1 out, they'll just be going for what they can get by swinging the bats.
1 out and the base is empty. Bo Diaz was, you saw him get up. He was signaling to Gary Matthews because the Philly coaches in the dugout were telling Matt to go more over toward the alley and away from the line. 0-1.
Joe is also the type of hitter that has been studying John Denny all through the game, and it wouldn't surprise me for Joe to go up there and possibly looking for one of those off-speed pitches.
Grounded toward the middle, but Morgan gets there and makes that one look easy. 2 down. So now to the top of the order.
Center fielder.
And Al Bumbry. Bumbry has hit the ball in the air 3 times tonight, and he's 0 for 3. Two runs, 4 hits, and no errors for the Phillies. 1 run, 4 hits, 1 error for Baltimore.
Bottom part of the Baltimore Oriole has certainly not been productive tonight.
No, well, 6 through 9 right now. A collective 0 for 12. Been a long time since Denny's given up 2 in a game. They gave up 1 tonight. That to Dwyer, but that's been it. Since then, just 3 singles. And no walks. In the air again, and this time it will pay off. It's a base hit and should be more into the corner. Bumbry still has decent speed and legs it into second for a double.
Seems to me that the Baltimore batters now are going up there more or less looking for those off-speed breaking pitches.
Now Paul Owens will be going to the mound. As you look at it, bouncing into the corner, it's 309 down the line there. And Lescano getting it back in. So Paul Owens goes to the mound. Owens has not been hesitant to use the hook, and he's going to do it here. He had Holland loosening up in the pen, and there he is. So he took Carlton out working on a shutout in the playoffs, and in comes Holland for Denny. We'll be right back. So here is Ford. With Bumbry, the tying run at second. 2 down, bottom of the 8th inning in the rain. It's 2-1 Philadelphia. Hit high in the air to left field, down into the corner, and it will stay in for Matthews, who turns it into an adventure. But he makes the catch. So Ford goes after Holland's first pitch, and the Orioles wind up the 8th inning. Run at second. The wind is helping to push this ball back toward the line. Matthews, a very aggressive outfielder, not particularly graceful out there, but as usual, gets the job done. To the 9th, it's 2-1 Phils. 4 changes for Baltimore. First, John Shelby stays in the game in center. Now, he hits 8th. He batted for Dempsey. There's Dan Ford, who batted for Dwyer. He stays in the game in right, hits 2nd. The new catcher is Joe Nolan, who batted for McGregor. He stays in the game and thus bats 9th. And the new pitcher is Sammy Stewart. So Bunbury comes out of the game. He was the penultimate batter in the 8th inning, and so Stewart bats in the leadoff spot. When the Orioles come up in the bottom of the 9th inning, Ripken, Murray, and then Lowenstein do up. But with the left-hander Holland in there, we'll probably see, let's say, Renicky. Meanwhile, Joe Morgan, Pete Rose, and Mike Schmidt in the 9th inning. Morgan was safe on an error, singled, hit a home run in the 6th inning to tie the game. Sammy Stewart.
One of the premier middlemen working in an unfamiliar role, short relief.
He had a strange sort of year, too. They were worried about him early on, Earl. And then he came on after the All-Star break.
Now it's really pouring. No drizzle such as we have had for much of the evening, but now a downpour.
Morgan might have broken his bat on that, popping it up. And it's Eddie Murray on the skin part, making the catch.
But another real good cut by Joe Morgan, and it's no wonder he had this type of stats he did in the month of September. He's having some real good swings and is going to figure to be a factor in this World Series.
And one of the interesting things, too, which will develop, of course, during the series, is there's some speculation this may end it for Joe Morgan. This could be the end of his career. It would be his decision, and it's something he wants to think about along with his family, his wife Gloria.
I don't think it will be. He only needs 4 more home runs to pass Rogers Hornsby.
Well, Pete Rose, his career won't end after this year as he gets a base hit into right field. The other story, of course, that will develop through the series is Rose and whether or not he'll be back in Philadelphia next year. That is the Phillies option.
That's a different story, and
right.
Pete fully expects really to be going elsewhere.
Well, this ball, as we watch it again, wasn't hit real good. Eddie had a good 4 steps at it, but just couldn't reach it as it rolled into right field.
Point I was going to make, Earl, in response to Al's statement about Joe Morgan is, I discussed this with Joe, and we'll hear from Joe on this matter during the course of the series, I'm sure. But Joe is only 4 shy of passing Rogers Hornsby as pitching coach Ray Miller comes out to talk with Sammy Stewart. If he hits 4 more in his career and has become a fixation with him, then he passes Hornsby as the second baseman who has hit more home runs than anybody else in the history of the game. There's Tippy Martinez, who's had such a brilliant year. So I think Joe will be back for that.
Well, I think he's going to really mull it over and think about it. And he's a man he's a multi-dimensional man. Rose, of course, is obsessed with records, and Pete wants more than anything else to pass Ty Cobb at 41.91.
You're right about that. That's an obsession that has its parallel only in classical literature. Say Ahab and the Great White Whale.
I read that last week.
You always did study Melville.
Absolutely.
Can I get that at the library?
Yeah, right. There is Mike Schmidt taking low for ball 1. Meanwhile, with the right-hander now working, Stewart, out on deck is Joe LaFay. As you look at Rose at first base, held on by Murray. LaFay will bat for Lizcano.
Then I would think we might see Tippy Martinez.
A strike. And the count 1-1. Donna Schmidt, who has spent a lot of time in ballparks in October. He is the Phillies since '76 have been, for the most part, a part of postseason play, with only a couple of exceptions.
Sammy Stewart throws hard. He reaches the 90-mile-an-hour mark at times with a good overhand curveball and a real hard slider.
Good fastball. 1-2. 90 the clocking on that. There's LaFay on deck to bat for Lizcano.
No running situation here as far as I'm concerned with Schmidt at the plate. Paul Owens would naturally be trying to go for 2, let Schmidt swing away.
2-2. Schmidt 40 homers this year, 389 in his career.
And what I mean by that is if Pete Rose should steal second base, it would open up first base and give the Orioles an opportunity to walk Mike Schmidt.
Very high again, and the count is 3-2.
Prime example of a person trying to throw the ball harder than he can.
A little pumped up and overthrowing. Let's see if Rose goes here. Of course, the risk you run is that Schmidt not only strikes out a lot, but as the graphic just told you, he led the league in strikeouts.
But it does give opens up a hole on the infield.
But Rose isn't going, and Schmidt pops it up in foul ground off to the right and drifting back in the seats. So it's still 3 balls and 2 strikes. Down goes Schmidt. Good location on the pitch as he ran it in on him, and it looked like Mike may have been looking away. 91 miles an hour on it.
And you're right, it was in the perfect spot. In, right on the fist. Mike couldn't get his arms extended. Watch this ball run in. An excellent shot.
So Schmidt gets tied up, 2 down. And now the Phillies go to the bench, and LaFay. And Von Hayes instead now comes out. They had LaFay out in the on-deck circle. And then when Schmidt struck out, Owens figures he will go with Hayes. Also figuring that he wants to put Hayes in there defensively. And perhaps save a
and
player.
Here comes the counter strategy.
Second trip, so that's it. Out the belly going to the mound, and he'll opt for Martinez. So Tippy will come in, and we'll be right back after this word from our local stations. Somewhere up there, the Goodyear blimp, and that's a very welcome sight to any baseball fan in October in his town. That means something big is normally happening. And a look down at the Memorial Stadium, Game 1 of the 1983 World Series, and it's been a beauty to this point as Tippy Martinez comes in to try to keep the Phillies close. They lead it 2-1. Martinez, very impressive numbers there. 9 wins, 21 saves, 2.35. And what it doesn't tell you is that he underwent an appendectomy in the middle of the season and had to go on the disabled list, so the numbers would have even been better.
Sometimes, though, Al, in the middle of the season, when something like that happens, you get the rest you need. And it saves a little bit in that arm for later on in the season.
Not pre-planned, but you're right. You take 3 weeks off, then it was easy surgery, and back he came.
Interesting graphic. Man hit 300 against left-handers.
Von Hayes. And we talked about Hayes before, and he was the subject of some derision earlier this year in Philadelphia. He was the man involved in the deal with Cleveland. They sent 5 players, including Julio Franco and Manny Trio, to Cleveland for him.
But you can understand manager Paul Owens. LaFay only had 180 against left-handed batters. LaFay has got a quick bat against right-handers, as he proved when the Yankees brought him up and he hit a series of home runs, and then on to San Diego.
But earlier this year at the Vet, when Hayes would come up, and he started the season hurt, he was injured in spring training, the chant would go up 5 for 1, 5 for 1. But people who follow the Phillies and see him every day say, well, don't worry about Hayes. He will be a very good player. Reaches for it, grounds it to Murray, and Martinez does the job. So they take care of Hayes, take care of the Phillies. No runs, 1 hit, 1 left. Remember, it's Ripken, Murray, and then Lowenstein due up in the bottom of the 9th inning. 2-1, Phils. On Saturday, Nebraska ranked #1 and rolling over almost everybody, taking on Missouri. That's our national game on NCAA football, 3:30 Eastern time. That follows the 4th game of the World Series as Von Hayes stays in the game in right field. He was the pinch hitter, and he'll bat 4th. So we go to the bottom of the 9th inning. Al Michaels, Howard Cosell, and Earl Weaver in Baltimore. Philadelphia leading 2-1. And as you can see, the Phillies were beaten only one time this year in games in which they led going into the 9th inning. And among other things, it tells you the bullpen was great. And they have their ace right now, Al Holland, who, like so many others, pitches out of a stretch without men aboard. And the first man he'll see is Cal Ripken. 0-1. He'll earn it if he gets the save here with Ripken, Murray, and Lowenstein due up. Mary Holland, Al's wife.
Tense moment for her. And the Baltimore crowd trying to get their ball players up.
He chased it, kept it away, and Ripken went after it, maybe a little over-anxious, and the count is 0-2.
Definitely over-anxious, Alan. It's something the young fella's going to have to stay away from the rest of this series. Swinging at pitches like that.
Strike 2 pitch coming up to Ripken is popped up. Left side, out on the grass, De Jesus, back of Schmidt, and Yvonne still drifting, makes the catch in fair territory. 1 away.
Well, he had a real good cut at that ball. I think Holland made it just a little bit better than he had tried to.
Eddie Murray comes up. First time he hits right-handed. Another look at the pitch and where it was. A little bit up. And he got under it. On deck is Renicky as Murray stands in. There's Gary Renicky. He'll bat for Lowenstein next. One and 0. 92 the clocking.
Joe certainly doesn't show much emotion.
Perhaps if there is one gigantic difference between Weaver and Altobelli, it's in that shot right there.
Yep.
Earl was the most emotional, and Altobelli extremely placid. And they're part of the Gang of Four, as they're known in Philadelphia. A strike. Management by committee. 93 miles an hour. Murray fouls it back. Struck him out. So 2 down in the 9th inning. And Renicky will come up.
Real good pitch on the inside part of the plate. Thrown very, very hard. And Eddie Murray just couldn't get the bat around in time.
Gary Renicky hit 19 homers this season. 18 of those home runs off left-handed pitching. There it is right there graphically. Cliff Johnson had 14, as did Winfield. And then a quartet with 13.
It's a little deceiving. He didn't get much opportunity to bat against right-handed pitchers in the platoon system. But nonetheless, it does show his effectiveness.
The only right-handed pitcher he homered off was Odell Jones, the Ranger reliever. So 2 down, bases empty, 9th inning. There is Singleton out on deck to bat for Dower if Renicky can keep it going.
Well, we've been able to see the bench of the Baltimore baseball team, but so far none of the pinch hitters have been able to come through.
Shelby struck out, Nolan grounded out, Ford flied out, and now Renicky. Good pitch on the inner half. 1-1.
That'll be a hard pitch to hit. If you throw the ball that hard on the inside half of the plate, it's hard to get those arms extended.
This is a tremendous victory if it turns out that way for the Phils.
2-1. That's 94 on the last clocking. His fastest pitch to this point.
And that's getting up with the best in either the American or the National League.
This could very well be a preview of the type of series it will be. Close, low-scoring games. 3-1. All of the scoring tonight, home runs. Dwyer for Baltimore, Maddox and Morgan.
We may see the first walk in this game. There have been only 4 games in series history. This is the 470th game with no walks. The last one in 67 between the Red Sox and the Cardinals. Count is 3-1.
Fouled back, and now it's 3-2. So Holland is a strike away.
No guesswork involved here. It was just Holland throwing it as hard as he could and Reineke swinging as hard as he could.
Al Holland with a count 3-2. And Reineke hits it very high in the air to left field, but it's hanging. Matthews is backing up into the corner, makes the catch on the warning track. So Al Holland, whose credo is give me the ball, and that's what Owens loves to do. He got the ball and retired the 4-many phase. And of course, when you begin a series, a World Series on the road, what you're looking for is at least a split in the other ballpark, and they'll get no worse than that now as they take game 1.
It was a dejected Baltimore dugout, and uncharacteristically, not one of the pinch hitters came through in this ball game.
Denny and Holland shut them down. The Baltimore offense consisting of a home run by Jim Dwyer in the first inning. He was the second man up. And then Joe Morgan hit a home run in the 6th inning to tie the game, and the game winner, Gary Maddox's home run. As you look again here at Gary Matthews going back to make the catch to end it. But Maddox's home run was the difference. It came in the 8th inning off Scotty McGregor. Final score in game 1, Philadelphia 2, Baltimore 1. We'll be back to Memorial Stadium right after this.
Clearly, neither the weather nor the score has dampened the enthusiasm of Oriole fans. But through 2 out in the 8th, Philadelphia Cy Young candidate John Denny has been superb, retiring 20 of the last 22 batters as Al Bumbry stands in. Bumbry's double prompts manager Paul Owens to remove his starter.
Hold the job, John. Hold the job.
We're right there. Let's win it.
That's right. We got him right now. We're going to percentage.
Okay. Yeah, that's all right. This guy's a good fastball.
I'm gonna bring in Holland. So we'll get him for you, Kevin. Hell of a job.
The call goes to bullpen ace Al Holland, and he's ready and willing to take charge.
Come on, let's go.
You got 2 out now.
Let's go. Oh, let's go. All right, concentrate on the hitter. Going right after.
With the speedy Bumbry on second, pinch hitter Dan Ford is the man whom Holland has to go right at. But left fielder Gary Matthews stays with it, and the inning is over. Later, with 2 gone in the 9th, Holland is just 1 out away from wrapping it up. Once again, Matthews makes the play, and the Phillies are 2-1 winners. In a game attended by the President of the United States, brilliant pitching from John Denny and Al Holland made the difference as the Phillies enjoy a victory in Baltimore.
Thanks to Alan Roth for statistics, Steve Hurd handling the graphics, and there it is tomorrow night. That's the matchup. 2 rookies who both look very sharp in the playoffs. Charles Hudson for Philadelphia, Mike Boddicker for Baltimore. We'll talk to you at 8 Eastern time. Al Michaels, Howard Cosell, and Earl Weaver saying so long from Memorial Stadium in Baltimore. There it is again, the final score in game 1, Philadelphia 2, Baltimore 1. Stay tuned for ABC News Nightline immediately following your late local news. The blimp provided by the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Corporation. Travel arrangements made through and a promotional fee paid by United Airlines, the official airline of the 1984 LA Olympic Games. and proud sponsor of the United States Olympic team. Coverage of the '83 series has been a presentation of ABC Sports, recognized around the world as the leader in sports television. Gary Mannix, the game-winning homer.